24 years later, we've got Gladiator II hitting movie screens this weekend as of this recording, and your guess is as good as mine as why it took that long to get to screens. I read something, I didn't finish the article, but there was talk about a sequel, I think in 2001. But for whatever reason, we're 2 decades later. I was excited to go see this movie because I really enjoyed the first Gladiator. And I watched it recently, maybe 4 months ago, and still don't remember a lot about it, but I just remember Russell Crowe's performance. I think he won Best Actor for that, and I think the film won Best Film that year. But anyway, you know what I gleaned from going to see this movie, Gladiator II, is that some movies just don't need a sequel, particularly if it's not going to be an inspired sequel. Gladiator II stars Paul Mescal as Hanno, who is one of the leaders of the army of his town, apparently. But is there more to his backstory? The movie also stars Pedro Pascal, who at this point, I think Hollywood is obligated to send every script generated his way, and he gets right of first refusal. Connie Nielsen returns as Lucilla. She was the daughter of Marcus Aurelius, I think that was his name, in the first film, and brother to Commodus, the antagonist. And we have Joseph Quinn, who plays one of the Mad Emperor brothers. We're going to see Joseph Quinn starring as Johnny Storm, the Human Torch, in the upcoming Fantastic Four film, also with Pedro Pascal. And we just recently saw Joseph in A Quiet Place Day 1. Here, in Gladiator 2, he looks even more like Robert Downey Jr. It's a little off-putting. And in a cameo role, we have the great Derek Jacobi, who I'm amazed, not to be grim here, but I'm amazed that he's still alive and doesn't look like he's aged a bit. So I'm not sure what I expected when I came to see this movie. It's Gladiator 2, so obviously it's going to have a lot of scenes of battle with gladiators. And I don't know, maybe my expectations were unrealistic, but when I went in here, it was within maybe the first, 30 minutes that I realized that, it is just going to be more gladiator battles, and they're going to be pale imitations of the battles that we saw in the brilliant first film. So when you boil it down to its essence, the first film was really simple. And I think that's what made it great. Maximus is a kick-ass general. Marcus Aurelius is going to give the throne to Maximus and leap over his son, not give the throne to his son Commodus. Commodus gets butthurt about it and then makes Maximus his enemy. And Maximus is trying to spend the whole film getting revenge. That's it. It's just as brilliant as John Wick. They killed his dog, he's going to kill them. That's all I need. This movie, like I said, is a pale imitation, and it feels like the producers, the filmmakers all realize that. So what do? They simply kind of up the ante almost to a convoluted level, and it makes it less interesting, at least to me. Adding all the plot stuff that they add in this film, it just makes the whole film seem unfocused overall. It seems just, like I said, convoluted. I found it a little hard to follow at times, and it should have been just a simple story. Not to say they should have mirrored the plot of the first film, which I think they tried to do, but then, like I said, they tried to throw in little myriads of plot double twist plots in here. It just doesn't add to the movie. As a matter of fact, it detracts from the movie. Paul Mescal, or Mescal, not sure how you pronounce the name, but he stars as Hanno. That's the name that we learn is this character at the beginning of the film. Now, I'm going to reveal something that I don't think is a spoiler because it has been told or given away in all the trailers and all the marketing of the film. But if you don't want to know, I'm going to give you 3 seconds to fast forward. Okay, here we go. Paul Mescal, or Mescal, I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name. He plays the lead character named Hanno. But we find out roughly in the second act that Hanno is actually Lucius, the character that we met in the first film, who is the son of Lucilla, Connie Nielsen's character. We never meet Lucius's father, but we establish that Maximus has his own son, who is the son of him and his wife. And his son and his wife are killed by Commodus's troops. out of jealousy, right? They try to kill Maximus, but they kill his family, burn down his farm. Well, in this film, I feel like it's a huge and cynical retcon where we learn that Lucius is actually Maximus's son. So Lucius is actually heir to the throne, and we see a lot of flashbacks of Maximus, and we see Connie Nielsen, Lucilla, sending Lucius away because she realizes that communists may try to have Lucius assassinated since he's heir to the throne in that first film. But I found that very cynical. I could not figure that out until I read some articles after seeing the film. And I just rolled my eyes and like, oh, come on. I mean, there's nothing that says Maximus could not have been Lucius's father. There's nothing in the story in the first film that says that couldn't have happened. But it's just, there's nothing hinted to it, nothing at all. And to me, making that change is reminiscent of making Leia Luke's sister in the 11th hour. Honestly, I didn't think that was necessary in the Skywalker saga because they didn't do anything really with Leia's revelation that she is Luke's sister and is strong in the Force. I don't think it was necessary to make that retcon here as well. Now, if I'm missing something and maybe I didn't pick up on something, I read the Wikipedia plot synopsis. I read a couple of articles. I don't think that was necessary. If you feel differently and tell me what I'm missing, please. One of the biggest issues I had with this movie was that I was just bored. The movie is 2.5 hours long, and it plays like it's 3 hours long. The fight scenes, and again, maybe I'm being unfair because what else are they going to show me in a Gladiator movie? Maybe, like I said, maybe I was expecting too much, but these fight scenes were just boring. They were derivative of the first film, and maybe it just didn't work for me because when I saw Gladiator, it was something new. It was something fresh. Now, granted, that's on me because there have been a number of Gladiator films in the past. You know, Kirk Douglas, Spartacus, those types of films, which I have not seen. But when I went in to see the first Gladiator, it was nothing. I had never seen anything like it before. So it worked for me then, and everything seemed grounded to a certain degree. Here, again, I'm like, okay, it's more of the same. But again, because it's more of the same, they tried to up the stakes, and it just got ridiculous. We've got feral baboons with impossibly large fangs. We've got a rhinoceros that's being ridden like a horse with a rhinoceros horn that's about as long as its body. And the rhinoceros is trained to gallop or run on command. I did some research on the Colosseum. And yeah, there were animals, there were baboons. Well, not baboons, but there were rhinos. But they weren't trained. They typically fought other animals. No one was riding these things. And then there's one scene that's just way over the top where they flood out the Colosseum and there's sharks in the water and they bring full ships into the Colosseum. Now, I did my research on that too, and I thought it was bullshit that they could put water in the Colosseum because it's not waterproof, right? But I did read that they did have, I think they were called naumachia, which is, pretend sea battles. And they did flood the Colosseum before it was fully developed, but on a small scale, not what you see in this movie. But then the sharks. How do you get sharks from wherever they got them from the Mediterranean Sea or wherever? How do you transport those in ancient Rome to the Colosseum? And it just got kind of ridiculous. But yeah, I was kind of disappointed at how uninteresting I found the fight scenes. And I think part of it is because, like I say, it's derivative. And Paul Mescal just doesn't have the on-screen presence that Russell Crowe had. He does his best. He's not a bad actor, but I don't know, I just didn't feel him the way I kind of latched onto or invested in Russell Crowe's Maximus. Now, the first battle scene where we see Acacius, that is Pedro Pascal's character, he's sent from Rome to conquer the hometown of Hanno, if you will. That was a great fight scene. And you know why? Because, number one, I guess maybe because it didn't take place in the Colosseum. And I felt more stakes. I felt like this guy, Lucius, was fighting alongside his loved ones for his town. And that raised the stakes for me. It wasn't a competition in the Coliseum. It was life and death, fighting for what he believes in for his hometown. Now, I ultimately know that the hometown and his team's going to lose, because how else are we going to get him to become a gladiator slave, right? But still, that fight scene worked for me. It felt great. It really was good, or a very well staged scene. After that, I got bored very quickly, and I've already told you why. Another thing that bothered me about all the fight scenes, the gladiator scenes, was that not only were they kind of boring because I'd seen it before, but they were so frequent. In my research writing this review, I read that gladiators fought maybe 3 to 5 times a year. Okay, so I'm not going to put actual history into this because I think the history in this film is completely fakaked. But it just got to the point where every time there was a disagreement, okay, my slaves are going to fight your slaves. And it just got old quick. And like I suggested, I think this movie plays fast and furious with the actual historical nature of ancient Rome, because, I'm a proponent of DEI, but I find it hard to believe that black people and Indian people and Asian people were members of the Roman Empire and allowed to come to these games without shackles on them, or they were treated like citizens of Rome. Even though citizens of Rome were treated like shit, I imagine, I just thought that was okay. I love DEI, but I like reality even more. People got to realize that the play Hamilton, that was a unique concept. That was not the norm. Which leads me to the great Denzel Washington. Let me just say, this was not one of my favorite performances of his. Let me explain why. Denzel Washington is kind of like Robert De Niro. He doesn't do a lot of different things. His range, as he's gotten older, is limited, like Bobby De Niro, right? But having said that, what he does do is mesmerizing. And he kind of does that in this film, but it just seems so off-putting. Imagine Alonzo Harris in ancient Rome. He seemed off-putting. I hate to say it because there's no way Denzel could ever be miscast in anything. But he felt miscast here. He felt like he was just wedged in. His character did not seem to organically mesh with all the other characters on screen. He does not even attempt to affect an accent. Typically, when someone does a Roman character, they're doing a British accent. The British accent is used for anything that's foreign in Europe, right? He doesn't even do that. Sometimes he does a little bit more like that New England old style accent, but then he'll just sound like he's straight out of Brooklyn. There's one scene where he's talking to one of the senators and he breaks into his ha. We make it out alive. And I'm like, wow. I expect him to say, my Roman. As I was watching this movie, one of the things I was finding myself doing, because it kind of had familiar beats, like I've said multiple times already, but trying to see, okay, what characters are derivative of characters from the first film. So clearly, Paul Mescal, his character is basically Maximus. Connie Nielsen plays Lucilla. She is the same character, so I'll let that go. Then we had, at the beginning, we had a character, I can't remember the actor's name. He's a black, I think he's British, but he's got very striking features. I can't remember his name. He looks like a demon, but I thought for a second, okay, that's Jaimin Hansu from the original film. With Denzel Washington, what I was certain of was that he was basically a derivative character of Oliver Reed's character in the first Gladiator film. If you remember Oliver Reed, I can't remember the character name, but he played the slave master who cultivated gladiators. He bought Maximus and made him into a gladiator. So that's what Denzel Washington does in this movie. He buys slaves and cultivates them into gladiators. So I thought, well, he's the Oliver Reed character. But then, what it felt like to me was that the script, the screenwriters, the filmmakers said, all right, look, we've got Denzel Washington. We better make him happy because he is an A-list star. He needs more to do in this film than Oliver Reed did in the first film. So let's up his arc. Let's make him integral to the story, even though it makes the story more convoluted. And that's what they did. And that's what it felt like as we see his arc progress on screen. I'm not going to give anything away about the character or what he does, but there's nothing inspirational or original about his motivations, what he wants, what he attempts to do in this movie. You could probably guess it, but it was just like, okay, we can't do better than this. We don't need this. We got this character we could deal with. We got that character we could deal with. Why are we bringing this into the story? And there's one other thing that I just thought was a little off-putting. Maybe I'm on my conspiracy guy, but there is a brief subplot that I can't believe Denzel signed off on, but it involves one of the Emperor's pet monkeys. And I can't say anything more than that. Maybe I'll bring it up later after the film's been out for a couple weeks. But I was like, really? Okay. Another thing I want to address about Denzel in this film is that I don't know what Denzel's on lately, but he's been running his mouth. I guess he's like, I'm about to retire. I'm letting it all hang out. I guess he did an article or interview with, was it Variety, where he says that he kissed a man fully on the lips and then killed him 5 minutes later. Well, we don't have that in the film. He did say in this interview that they cut it from the film. Ridley Scott denies that that happened, I think, or whatever. But we do see him kissing men on the hand. I just assumed that in ancient Rome it was customary for men to kiss the hands of royalty. That doesn't seem too far-fetched. And we do see him kiss a man on the left and right cheek, which, again, in Italian culture is customary for a man to kiss another man in that manner if they're close friends or compadres or whatever the word is. So, nothing to lose sleep over. Personally, had he kissed another man full on the lips, I would have been like, okay, that was worth the price of admission. Now I'm seeing something new from Denzel particularly. I can't say there were any bad performances in this movie, but the overall product just was not compelling to me whatsoever. I keep repeating myself, but I felt like I'd seen it done better before back in 2000. The cinematography was excellent. The production design was astounding, amazing. But the sum of the parts didn't add up to a whole that I would want to deal with again. Now, having said that, if it were to come on TV when it comes on streaming, would I watch it again? Sure. If I got nothing better to do, maybe I'll see something in it that I didn't see before, and I'll end up loving it. That wouldn't be the first time that's happened to a film or a TV series to me before, where I did enjoy the first time, but after another viewing, I love it. I felt the same way about Empire Strikes Back. Speaking of that, the reason I didn't like Empire Strikes Back when I first saw it was because of the cliffhanger. I was waiting for them to show me how they're going to rescue Han, and I was pissed when those credits came up. But what's interesting is that with the ending of this film, it felt kind of like that. It just kind of stops. I'm not going to say what happens, but you're like, I sat through all of that for this result? You led all up to this. You led to this point. Don't leave me hanging now. I've been sitting here for 2.5 hours. It's that type of an ending. And it makes me wonder if they ended it that way because they're going to bring out another sequel, which I probably won't spend the time to go see. Ultimately, I'm going to give this movie 2 reels. I was prepared to give it 3 until we got into the second act. And first act, I was like, okay, they're establishing the story. It's a gladiator story. I got to sit through the gladiator stuff in the Coliseum like I did before. But then when it didn't really evolve much more than that, and they just started throwing in plot twists for what I believe was the sake of plot twists, it knocked it down from 2.5. And then when I saw that ending, it knocked it down to 2. If you got nothing better to do, go see it. I think I saw a 64% rating, which isn't bad on Rotten Tomatoes. But people in my circle are saying that they were falling asleep, and it's too long, unfortunately. So, all right, that's all I got for today for this review. I think the next review I'm going to do is probably going to be, well, I might go check out Wicked. I never would have thought I'd say that. I'll probably go check Wicked out. Definitely the next movie I think I'm going to review is Captain America, Brave New World. And I'm not sure when Sinners comes out. I want to see that one too. So be on the lookout. I got to self-finance, guys, so it's not like I don't get tickets to every film that comes out like some of these YouTube critics do. I'm not that big just yet. So those are the films I want you to look out for. Look for a review from me. And until then, I'm glad you sat through this one. If you sat through it, through the whole thing, that must mean you appreciate what I do, and I'm eternally grateful. Please, the best thanks I could get from you is for you to subscribe. Let me know what you think. All right, guys, till next time, that's the Martini. Take care.